Hello and welcome to another episode of Being High with Dualistic Unity, sponsored by Kava Brands, the THC gummies of choice for better days and better nights, legally and discreetly delivered directly to your door anywhere in the U.S., unless you live in Idaho. Sorry, Idaho. Get Kava Gummies online at kavabrands.com/DU10. That's KAVVABRANDS.com/DU10. And definitely don't forget to use code DU10 for 10% off your order.
And today's episode of Being High actually features Dennis Mistrioty. He is the founder and CEO of Batch. We've recently been talking to Batch. I know Andrew has experimented a little bit with some of their products. So this is going to be a hell of a conversation. It was a lot of fun to record. I'm just going to pass it over to Andrew here and we'll get underway. But I just wanted to mention very quickly to everyone, we really appreciate your support for this new series called Being High. If you have an opportunity to take a clip from any of these informative discussions, please do share them online, spread the word, because this is a ripple that we can all get behind. And it's definitely something we want to support.
Amen. Yeah, Dennis was a blast to chat with. I have tried some of their product. I mentioned it at the end, but I'm on 2 of their gummies during this, so I loved it. It's been a blast. It's been a whirlwind, but a lot of fun. And Dennis is an awesome dude, super, super knowledgeable, and has a great story behind why he got into cannabis and why he's in the industry and what's driving him. So it was a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy.
So Dennis, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast. This is our 4th episode of Being High with Dualistic Unity. And what we generally try to do here, as you know, is just relax and be ourselves, kind of shoot the shit and see where it goes. There's always an insight when you're willing to just allow yourself to be insightful, which means not try to be anything, because that just gets in the way. And so before we go any further, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell everyone a bit about yourself, a bit about Batch, and what it is that you're so excited about in running Batch, because I know it's something that you're passionate about.
Sure. Appreciate you guys having me. Super excited to be here, have the conversation wherever it goes. What's unique about Batch is that we actually are a full farm to table CBD brand, which kind of gives us a unique insight into the CBD and cannabis industry in general. Number of reasons for that, but basically we have a farm, which is right here in Wisconsin, where I'm sitting right now. Not at the farm, but Wisconsin, where we grow all of our hemp. And then from there, after harvest, we process all of the hemp into a rich, crude hemp extract, where we then formulate all of our products from gummies to oils to topicals, bottle them up here, and send them directly to customers' doorsteps. So we're direct to consumer, but we kind of pride ourselves on really pulling back that curtain and showing everybody what the cannabis industry is about, and show that there's really nothing to be fearful of. And in an industry that really is kind of like the Wild West, we just try to make people feel comfortable and understand, at the very least, where their products are coming from and how they're made.
I love that. I think that's such an important part of this industry as it continues to grow, is just the education element of it, because there is such a stigma. There are a lot of old assumptions that have been working against us for a very long time. You brought up something that we have not had an opportunity to cover on the show as yet, which was topicals. I was wondering if you might cover that a little bit for us.
Yeah, topicals have been really popular for us. In fact, they're probably our most reviewed product. They're not our highest selling product, but they receive the most consistent positive reviews. Usually people use them for pain relief, but there's a number of uses for topicals, and obviously I can't speak medically on what they will for sure help with, but our customers tend to buy them for topical pain relief and also skin conditions, not only moisturization, but also particular skin conditions, sometimes eczema and psoriasis. But yeah, they're super common, easy to use. You don't need to ingest anything, obviously, so there's nothing to worry about in terms of drug tests or getting high, which of course CBD products aren't intended to do anyways, but it's kind of another one of the appeals for them. You can easily take them on the go.
That's awesome. I can't speak from a medical background either, but I can definitely speak anecdotally. And I know in the past, training in Kung Fu, I actually have used THC topicals, but they weren't legal at the time. I was going through the Canadian medical marijuana program through Health Canada. And so the grower that I was hooked up with just happened to create their own topicals. They were really experimenting on their own in kind of a private way. And so, yeah, every time I would get bruised up in class, I would definitely apply that to the bruise. And it was just crazy. It was incredible how I remember one day I actually just applied it to half the bruise, and half the bruise disappeared by the next day and the rest was still there. And so it was really, really effective. I do have a question because, as you said, it's not ingested. In the process of making topicals, what is the process there? Like, are you actively heating the THC so that way it still is activated, or is it just more or less a process of it just being applied to the skin?
Oh, good. Okay, good question. So I guess this goes down to how do you make any CBD product a little bit. And so just to be clear, when we extract CBD from the cannabis plant, what we're doing is we are extracting a thick, highly concentrated extract that you would not ingest on your own. The closest thing you could compare it to from a recreational user's perspective is dabs or something of the like, or what would go in a vape cartridge. But typically you don't ingest that as it is, right? So you start with this very raw extract, which is an oil. Most of our extracts are between 65 and 85% CBD. And the rest of that extract is actually other terpenes, cannabinoids, and nutrients from the hemp plant. And while CBD and also THC are typically the poster children of the cannabis industry, it's really all of those compounds working together that make the product so effective and so popular. So we're interested in CBD and we're interested in THC. That's what people are buying. People are buying those milligram concentrations, but it's really that full plant extract that is creating all of these wonderful effects that we enjoy. To answer your actual question about making the topicals, we start with that raw extract, and just like we make oils or gummies, we will infuse that into a oil soluble topical, basically. So actually what we do is we start by pretending we're a cosmetic company, right? We make a product that is good in and of itself, whether that be a cream or a lotion or a salve, or our balms come in like a twist up deodorant stick that you can just like hands-free apply to any area of concern. And then our particular process for that is a melt and pour. So we have that product, we melt it down into a liquid phase, we infuse the oil into it, and then we pour it in its liquid phase into these deodorant tubes, and then they re-solidify. While it's in that liquid phase, we thoroughly mix it, homogenize it, and we have an internal testing lab here, actually, in addition to a third party that we use. But we start by doing a full test to make sure the cannabinoid profile is exactly as we want it, infuse it, pour it into these deodorant sticks, and then they re-solidify, and they're basically good to go from there. That is the case of the balms that we make. The reason we use that application is because we are infusing it with a rather earthy, concentrated, sometimes aromatic extract, and a waxy balm consistency allows us to make a very concentrated extract that's not gross, right? Because if you were to infuse that into a lotion that you would get at a beauty store, that's going to turn out to be a little unappealing. So that's why we make it the way that we do, but we also use creams and lotions for some less potent products as well.
So I'm curious in that distillation process, because I feel like sometimes the cannabinoids and a lot of the things like, I don't know, terpenes, or I'm not exactly sure of the lingo for it, but they get taken out during a distillation process. So do you guys follow something that isn't as distillated or more distillated, or how does that compare, if you know what I'm referring to in terms of like
totally
cutting it out just to get like the THC?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, terpenes are very fragile in that they are quick to evaporate off of not only the plant, but the extract that you're making. And if you don't know, terpenes are the aromatic compounds in the cannabis plant. They're what make various strains smell different, but they're also what make cannabis strains express different effects. And terpenes are found all throughout nature. So in the same terpenes that might be found in a sativa cannabis strain that makes you feel uplifted, for example, limonene, is also a terpene that can be found in citrus fruits. So that's like what terpenes are doing, and you want those in there to express those effects that the plant is providing for you. So to answer your question about how do we preserve those, the first round of extract that we make, it's a balance between aesthetic and effectiveness a little bit, right? So the first extract that we make is something that is actually called throughout the industry crude oil, which is, or CBD crude oil, where we just extract the cannabinoids, the raw hemp extract, and we don't further distill it anymore. We personally use a cold ethanol extraction here using food grade ethanol. We know that sounds scary. It's what almost every extraction lab does, even if they first use CO2, their CO2 or ethanol. And when we do that extraction, we're able to distill off the ethanol completely while preserving most of those terpenes. The next, and that's like a very dark extract. It looks, it doesn't look like the vape cartridges that you might buy.
So
but that
is that because it's closer to like the origin? Like, is that closer to what it looks like coming out of the plant or when it's initially extracted?
Yeah, exactly. So when we do an extraction, we're also pulling chlorophyll and plant nutrients when we're doing that. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, people are buying chlorophyll on it by itself right now these days, depending on where you are, maybe quite often. And those all contribute to the experience. And that's natural for those that come in a plant extract. And so we actually use that extract in most of our products, and we take on the responsibility of trying to make the product taste and smell as appealing as possible, because our brand is pretty focused on effectiveness. We try not to launch anything gimmicky or, strawberry watermelon oil, anything like that. But like there's also a further refinement that you could do where you distill off the cannabinoids and leave some of that plant material behind, but still have a pretty diverse profile of cannabinoids and still some terpenes. That is what the industry commonly refers to as distillate. So it's still full spectrum, if you know that term. It still has some THC in there. And we use that on a handful of products that require a better aesthetic, sometimes a skincare product. And then you can even isolate CBD down to a powder, 99.9% CBD. And in fact, to like fully preserve terpenes, people are doing what is called rosin pressing, where you literally press the oils out of the hemp plant. So it's a physical extraction rather than a chemical extraction. Extremely low yield, but very potent and rich and tastes like the plant that it comes from. It's a very cool experience. It's kind of like a novelty product in a way. It's not super common. I wish we could do it at scale. I was even like, we go up to our farm a lot right now, and we kind of like love to go up there. It's like almost harvest time, hang out with our farmers, and I just recently got a sample of a rosin gummy, and I'm like, damn, this is really cool. Like we have this like amazing field of hemp that we spent all this time like dialing in like the genetics that work in our cultivation process. I'm like what could we get out of like this field? And they're like like nothing. Like it's so low yield, but like people will manicure hemp kind of like they do marijuana in greenhouses to get a highly rosinous plant in order to press the cannabinoids and terpenes out of it.
So I have to ask, Dennis, how did you end up here? Were you an enthusiast of the cannabis plant as I was as a teenager, and that just translated into adventures in that industry? Or was there something else that got you interested in spreading the word and helping, I guess, encourage education and awareness of cannabis as a whole?
Totally. Yeah, good question. So I started this business when I was in college, or shortly after college, with my college roommates at the time. And like, I won't go too far back, but we had started a business prior while we were still attending school. And it was a food cart business. It was very like fun, and we learned about entrepreneurship from that side, but wanted to do something that was personally more meaningful to us as we graduated. And we were always pretty passionate about alternative remedies for wellness and just trying to live healthy lives. Also, we're cannabis users, and like the industry was fascinating, especially at the time. Like, so that would have been like 2018, even before when we were starting it, 2017 when we started the business. So the marijuana industry, the recreational industry was like pretty established, but hemp had just legalized nationwide. And I had a relative in Colorado who I was like out there skiing or something. And he was just explaining to me how a bunch of the marijuana farmers out there were converting their fields to hemp. Again, at the time, I was like, one, what is hemp and what is CBD? And like, why would they be doing that? Like, it doesn't get you high. Like, why? I don't really get it. So it was on my radar that was happening. This was like a few years before that. And then once hemp was due to be legalized, where I'm at in Wisconsin, I started attending a few conferences and just learning about it. And Wisconsin's a agricultural state, but does not know anything about cannabis, right? We don't have recreational or medicinal cannabis here. So as I was going to these conferences, I kind of got acquainted with a group of cannabis professionals in Seattle who, I think maybe because we were young and curious, kind of took us under our wing and said, hey, if you guys want to come out here, we'll like show you what we do here. And we toured these extraction labs and farms and equipment manufacturers and dispensaries and testing labs, and really learned everything from a more matured industry, and came back to Wisconsin with quite a bit of knowledge. And my two co-founders are chemical engineers. So the industry was super fascinating from a mix of skill sets. So I had a little bit more business background. They had a chemistry background. And this industry allowed us to dive into like chemistry and agriculture and business and wellness. And it was a really cool fit for us in that way. And so it was immediately riveting. When we started the business, though, we had no knowledge, or we had no money to get anything going. We did not start this brand at the time. We mustered up enough money to get a piece of testing equipment, actually. And I have a hilarious picture of like the first warehouse that we ever resided in, which is just like this dark, like one like dangling lamp, like from a horror movie, with us underneath it on a folding table with this somewhat expensive piece of lab equipment. And the reason we were a testing lab is because all these farmers now in Wisconsin were growing hemp and needed to make sure that their plant was, one, compliant by being less than 0.3% THC. It's a federal rule. And also to know the value of their crop, that it is like what the CBD level is basically. So we're running these tests for, $75 a test, industry standard, generating a little bit of money. And before we knew it, we knew every farmer in the entire state that was growing hemp. So once we started getting a little bit more money, we're like, well, we could probably start making these extracts, because we toured all these places in Seattle and we like broke down the science, and it was like, they're basically just doing an extraction and a distillation, but they're doing it with this fancy cannabis machine. But I don't think we need to do that. So we got some brewery equipment for way cheaper and started making extracts ourselves, just selling them to other people making ingredients. At this point, we are doing this out of just kind of excitement to be in this new blossoming industry. And then people were requesting that we started making products, which we did on the side. But when we really dove in with intention was when we were looking at the CBD industry and a lot of these companies that we were servicing in some way, and realized that it was a little bit shallow and it was a little bit premised on just the CBD buzzword, right? CBD was selling itself at that time. There was a sign on every corner of the universe saying CBD sold here. And a lot of companies made a lot of money, which, when you're in an industry like that, it's easy to get a little bit complacent. And because we accidentally built this supply chain from the ground up all the way to the brand, we kind of realized we have so much to show people, and everybody is so intentionally secretive as though they're doing some crazy shit, that nobody could ever conceive of, but it's not, it's actually very simple. Like it's farming and it's a little bit of chemistry, but it's not that crazy. And then you're just making a product. And so we kind of went in with the intention of, let's show people what this is all about. We're going to take you to the farm. We're going to show you our farmer. We're going to show you the strain that we use, how we grow it, show the team harvesting, how we make a product. And if you have any questions, like, it is literally our team here in this building that answers them for you. So we can kind of just show what the industry is from start to finish. Obviously, from a business standpoint, we have that ability to say it literally never leaves our hands. What you're ordering, it starts here and it ends here, which is great. But it was really cool that we were able to proceed with that purpose and kind of build some community around that passion for transparency.
That's incredible. That's an incredible journey for sure. And what's interesting to me, because the journey itself is non-linear. Like, it goes in a lot of different directions because there are a lot of different things you had to learn. But because of that, it's challenging in its own specific way, because each and every time you have this new thing to learn, there's always that temptation to go, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can understand that. I don't know if I'm smart enough, or I don't know if other people would do it better.
Oh,
And there's
yeah.
always this fucking litany in your head. And so I have to ask, as you've been going through this, because you've been at it for a while now, how do you as a person feel in terms of just feeling less restricted in wanting to do things that maybe at one point you would have said are outside your comfort zone?
Oh, good question. Like, just the comfort of being uncomfortable, you're saying, in a way?
Absolutely.
Well, so it's funny because we almost got lucky in a way that, because of the industry that we chose being so kind of unhinged and unregulated, and there not being an established monopoly, right? It was everybody started from the same starting line for the most part. That was able to make up for some of our incompetencies as like 23-year-olds, probably, when we were starting the business. But you kind of answered the question in a way. Yeah, super free, and I feel confident in just trying things, and you just kind of grow resilient knowing that it's good and okay to not know what you're doing or how you're going to achieve whatever goal it is you're setting out to achieve. You just take that first step and you'll find out, and maybe you'll fail, and then you figure out what you did wrong, and then you fix it the next time. But nothing ever gets done if you don't take that first step. And it's definitely been a characteristic that we've all grown to embrace, of just kind of stepping into the abyss. Yeah, of course we don't know what we're doing, but you don't find out unless you start. So it's gratifying for sure.
Exactly. And it's like it almost doubles down when you're also in an industry like cannabis that's kind of finding out. So you're finding out for yourself in business and personal life, but then you're also stumbling through uncertainty in an industry that there's this massive stigma behind. And I love that you guys, and I've seen some of your stories of like the behind the scenes stuff, just because that has to kind of be a component with any company that is, involved in a massive stigma. And so I think there'd be nothing better than just breaking that down, because people, as long as they're able to maintain an idea built off of fear, it's like, until they see it for what it is, it's like, oh, that's not so bad. That's just
Totally.
kind of looks like anything else that's being,
Yeah.
harvested and produced and all of that. So I love that you guys do that and are willing to just show all parts of it, because I think it's a massive help in breaking down that stigma.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, right, it's like a kind of cliche thing to say, but it is like just a plant. And like, now that, for us being in this 5 years, like, the wow factor of being on the hemp farm has worn off a little bit. It could be a cornfield that we're walking through. It's like, it's really just a plant that happens to be used not just for food, but there's totally nothing scary about it. And when you just see it in the ground there, just of the earth, it's so not intimidating. Like, how could this be harmful? Which of course it's not.
Absolutely. Actually, I have another question regarding, because of course you're involved in hemp, which means that you're involved with the overall dialogue regarding hemp. And I know recently the G20 and governments around the world are looking at hemp in terms of an answer to carbon sequestration. Just wondering if that's something that's on your radar right now, and if the government's doing anything at all to help encourage the carbon sequestration in your industry.
I so badly wish I had a great answer for you on that one, but I don't. The only thing I can say on that is I am seeking opportunities to use um I'll call it like the waste of the plants that we grow in a way, which I don't think this has much to do with carbon sequestration, but uh like we use the buds of the plant for the most part, right? And so I think from a sustainability perspective, you always hear about all these crazy things that you can make with hemp stock, and I don't really have anything to do with it right now. If somebody wants them, I've got them. But no, interested in learning more for sure. Hope there's more positives to come of it, and I hope there's more narratives in that front rather than like the kind of THC alternative front that's going down right now.
I think it's really encouraging. I mean, whether we recognize it or not, the fact is that what's happening is the carbon is becoming the plant. It's becoming the root system. And so all of a sudden that carbon's out of the air and it's made into a physical thing. And so regardless of how you're using it, it's helping just to grow hemp, because it is so powerful in terms of pulling that carbon out of the air, even in helping with the toxins in the ground and whatnot. That must have been a bit of an education as well, to recognize how useful hemp is in its own survival.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's also nutrient rejuvenating for a lot of fields, right? So, I by no means am a farmer, but it's my understanding that it's common to rotate crops for the sake of the soil. And that is not the case with hemp. And even you could take a field that has been pesticides have been used on the field, and not that you would want to sell that crop because it will absorb those pesticides, but it will revitalize that field, which is super cool as well. And that's the thing, right? With hemp in general, from a purist standpoint, I'm in the industry where we use it for medicinal or wellness reasons, right? But there's so many amazing alternatives, not only for the environment, but just other sustainable industries that I think couldn't even say have scratched the surface. And I think it's probably just driven by money would be my guess. Because right now, right, the cannabinoid market is what is driving it. So I think the rest of it's a little bit ignored right now. But I'm so curious to see where else that can go. And frankly, the crop that is grown for, let's say, fiber, it's basically not even the same plant that we're growing. We're basically growing marijuana plants that don't have as much THC, right? It's not at all the same thing. But like we actually at the University of Wisconsin, there's a hemp program that we kind of involve ourselves with a little bit, and they're doing some studies on growing these big burly stalks of hemp, which is really cool. Again, don't have much to take away from it other than hopefully there's more to come.
Everybody who's in the industry is encouraging the industry. I mean, that's ultimately it, is the fact that now we're looking at something we haven't looked at in forever. And it was the backbone of our society. It was the backbone of so many things we've done for thousands of years. And all of a sudden it just became a vilified item simply because of, again, the powers that be and the structure that was making money off of the alternatives, such as cotton and whatnot. Not just that, but the war on drugs, all this other stuff. And so the plant itself ended up getting all tossed in together with this idea of this is bad, and it's done nothing but do good for us.
Totally. And that's kind of why, not to go down like a rabbit hole here, but that's why I'm bummed out that I don't know. Are you guys familiar with like the Delta 8 and the THCO and the HHC and all of this stuff at all?
No.
No.
Basically
Okay.
not at all. So.
Okay. So at least for Andrew.
More.
So one of the issues that's happening right now is so people are just targeting loopholes in this 2018 Farm Bill. In short, the reason we're able to create products that have some amounts of THC and in some cases a little bit more amounts of THC, because that the Farm Bill states that a product is compliant so that it is one, derived from hemp, and two, it has less than 0.3% Delta 9 THC on a dry weight basis. Okay, for reference, 0.3% THC in a hemp plant is you could smoke a whole field of it and you're not really going to get high. That's a minuscule amount, right? Most marijuana strains have 15 to 30 plus percent THC. But if you take 0.3% on a weight basis and you have a gummy that's the size of a golf ball, you can have 500 milligrams of THC in that and still be below 0.3% THC. And
Oh man.
yeah. Okay. So this is,
Gnarly.
this is like the least concerning part, just for reference. um, and so like that's how so many of us are able to make gummies, right? Hopefully in a very reasonable amount. And the THC also has to be derived from hemp. So even though there's 0.3% THC in the hemp plant, when you concentrate that, it can get up to an amount that you can utilize to make you high. You can extract it, whatever. THC derived from the hemp plant, even with that loophole, probably not the end of the world. Where people are really causing problems, though, is that they're taking that definition of hemp derived and they are creating other tetrahydrocannol molecules. So basically THC alternatives, like delta 8 THC and HHCO and THCP. And these THC like molecules, and the way they do it actually is they take CBD, they isolate the CBD molecule, and they alter it to create a different molecule that mimics THC. So it still interacts with your receptors in the way that will make you high. So they are not natural cannabinoids and not cannabinoids that can be reasonably extracted, but they still produce the same effect, and they are like derived from hemp. And the problem is now you can go to gas stations or even online and purchase these products. Some of these cannabinoids are like 50 times as potent as THC is on its own. So it's a little bit scary. And now you have a little bit of a narrative going on. I'm a little bit up to date with this because the new farm bill is like being developed right now every 5 years. And it's all the attention is on these THC or intoxicating alternatives, rather than all those things that we just discussed about all the positive, byproducts that we can make from hemp. So it's a worthy concern, though. Like, it does need to be addressed, and it's kind of annoying for somebody like me, right? We're trying to like do all this like great education and show, look, it's like just a plant, and then you have like these brands called like, I don't know, like if you guys swear or whatever I hear, but they'll be called like
sure.
Messed Up, and like all these crazy colors, and you can buy them anywhere. And so like, kids will get way too high. And it's a wild industry, like I said.
Yeah, and it just goes to show like a mentality can fuck up anything, right? Like our mentality, even something like mushrooms or cannabis, like they come from the earth and they're this thing, and we actually, a mentality that's trying to control, trying to get somewhere, trying to be greedy, is going to contort it however it can in order to get something out of it, or even out of this similar thing from it, and just be able to do something with it. And so it's got to double the difficulty, as you guys are talking about, as you said, like you're talking about all the great parts, and then it's like people are contorting it into this thing, and now that's actually playing out as a potentially harmful thing. It's like, yeah, this isn't that, but this is
exactly right.
Yeah.
Right, because like you have, obviously lawmakers aren't going to understand this industry as intimately as we're discussing right now. So right, there's a concern brought to the table, and you're like, yeah, we want them to address that without like fucking up all of this also. And a little bit of fear right now is like, don't screw it all up together, just out of fear of like avoiding a problem, which I suppose I could understand unbiasedly, but I'm hoping that's not the case.
Let me take a second to tell you about a brand that is making waves in the cannabis world right now, Batch CBD. Batch is a hemp-based brand that offers premium CBD and THC products that legally ship directly to your doorstep. But here's why they're getting so much attention. From the moment the hemp seeds are planted to the moment the product arrives at your doorstep, Batch keeps full control of the entire supply chain. Go check out Batch at hellobatch.com/DU25 for 25% off your first order. That's hellobatch.com/DU25 for 25% off your first order. Yeah, it's wild to think that just how much the stigma behind it is just so unfounded, like where that shit came from. And it really could, like almost all of our major industries, I feel like could be replaced by hemp cannabis plant. Like, so like cotton, pharmaceutical, just to name two massive ones. Like holy, and
Plastics,
from really how plastics?
hemp derived plastics, right? Way
Concrete.
better for the environment.
Jesus Christ!
Hempcrete's a
Like
thing. I know it's like good for insulation, I
Hempcrete, that
believe.
shit's the bomb, and it doesn't need any vapor barrier on the inside. It's fire retardant as well.
Right, right. It's crazy. So that's what I'm saying, right? It's like all these like wild things, which again I like should see speaking on because I all I know is the fact that they're possible, but there's just so little being done or researched or
It's amazing
created at
how
a
much is
commercial
happening
scale.
overseas, though. I was working
Basically.
basically. So previously, I was working for a company that would do drone flights over hemp fields and basically use a spectrum of light to be able to detect the chlorophyll level in each plant to see whether it's healthy or not. And you can, oh yeah, it's
Wow.
super useful stuff. It was really, really interesting. But we were working with a lot of companies overseas, in Africa. Oddly, Africa itself is just booming with hemp. China, India,
Really?
they are investing in hemp by the fucking thousands of fields. Like it is insane how much they're doubling down on hemp overseas.
For
And
cannabinoid like
just
extraction or
for
for something
everything,
else?
for fiber, right? For
Crazy.
fiber, for oil, for biofeed. It is such an inexpensive way of revitalizing an entire country and an entire fucking agricultural sector. And so they're all figuring that out, that there's way more potential in hemp than anybody's ever looked at. And the States is just fucking dragging ass.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's just unbelievable. And it's so yeah, right? And it's like you just feel like you're gonna be left behind a little bit. But at least I mean, at least somebody's doing it. It's better than nothing, even if we have to lag behind a little bit. Maybe if that's the kick in the ass the US needs, that's fine.
That's how we got here, right? Like that's
Yeah.
how we got here. And while it might not be as obvious with hemp, it certainly is with cannabis, because I mean, people forget cannabis is illegal in 85% of the world.
Yeah.
Where it is legal is largely North America and a little bit of Europe. So on that side, on the getting high side, we are very progressive. But when it comes to actually not
True.
fucking the world over, we're a little slower.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, time will tell, I guess. We'll see what happens in this farm bill.
yeah, seriously, yeah. So and I'm happy to be a part of a shifting mentality, a shift in the stigma, because it's so, oh man, just how much a stigma is necessary when something doesn't have anything to back it up. Like there's such little research against it, and so
Totally.
it needs that stigma. But it's kind of unreal to see just the use case and how it did infiltrate the whole world. And it's fascinating. So I'm kind of curious, just in your experience, I know you talked about it a little bit, but with cannabis, and kind of what got you into it, what you enjoy even about being high, some of, whether it's a feeling cerebral, just chilling out, just relaxing, just what your journey's been like with cannabis.
Totally. I've like as far as consuming cannabis goes, I used to be able to handle so much more than I can now. And I don't like know why exactly. Maybe just be like lifestyle changes for the most part, but I like keeping it at like a socially tolerable level where I'm like feeling good, and unless I'm like watching a movie for the most part. So I just enjoy it to like usually to do an activity out and about is like my favorite time to I like to take a gummy or something like that. But yeah, I think like the industry has changed a lot too. Like the I think over time recently, like especially a lot of dispensary edibles are made with like THC isolates. Kind of talked about that earlier before. So I feel like had a few bad experiences with that where I'm like trying to like tone it down a little bit, but I don't use it for anything super medicinal other than like trying to help me sleep a little bit. But I just think what's so cool about it is that it's like a natural remedy that, like I said, right, we don't make all these medical claims, but there's all this potential that we know it can be used for, right? People take it for pain relief and sleep and anxiety and things a lot more serious than that. And even though we can't say, this is going to help you sleep, this I promise you this will help you sleep, I just love kind of like creating a product that is safe and genuine that people can experiment with and not need to worry about, harming themselves, right? Because we know what the pharmaceutical industry is like. And it's like, yeah, I want to solve this problem, but do I want like this laundry list of other problems to come with it? And so to just be able to offer something for people to safely experiment with is just been really gratifying in that regard. And everybody that works here likes sampling the products too. So usually, usually a good vibe around here. So yeah, it's been fun. Andrew, you said you're kind of like new to it all, right?
To cannabis. Yeah. I mean, I had the first time I ever smoked was first week of college and I was 19. And since then, hadn't really much. Had two edible experiences in college that were just brutal. And it's so funny because like I feel the same exact way. I just went through a number of feelings that I got back way back then. I'm just like, oh yeah, now you're on a fucking podcast and you gotta say stuff and you gotta make some degree of sense, but also you don't because you're just here, just being you, just being yourself, and that's all you really got to do. And so it's just funny. But anyway, well, yeah, my experience with cannabis is relatively new in terms of doing it more frequently because I always had an aversion because I fought the feeling of, being high, like that state of relaxation. I would fight the shit out of it just because it was different. And I didn't really have control in it. Like you're stepping into
Mm,
uncertainty. I think it's a relinquishing of control, which is where, freedom is, but you gotta let go of control to experience freedom. And so I fought that feeling a lot. So now I still go
interesting.
through all sorts of ups and downs, but I just kind of have less of an opinion of it, I guess.
So you feel like you've like surrendered to the feeling a little bit when you're in that, whereas like not trying to like control, like
Yeah, I just
you
stopped
know you're
judging
losing
it.
control. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I feel like I could even take a note from that. You can almost like coach somebody through this. It sounds like help them
Yeah.
out a little bit.
This is actually the premise of our podcast is that there are lessons within that state that we are learning all the time. It's just that it's not quite so overt that we are actually paying attention to how uncertain we are. We get under the impression that we can be certain. We get under the impression that we can know. And then we just live there until all of a sudden we're in a state of awareness where there are so many more considerations. This person be thinking this could happen. This could happen. I don't know. And it doesn't dawn on us necessarily that we have no control, but that we would never have. And in that state, it's
Totally.
like, relax, because that's what you got. That's all you can really
Totally.
do. And so we can learn that the rest of the time. We can learn that all the time. In fact, marijuana kind of makes it easy in that it can make you a little afraid. And in that fear, you conquer that fear and you recognize that you could the whole time. And so if you can do that while you're high, you can do it while you're not.
Such a good point, right? And I feel like in the hustle bustle of everyday life, sometimes it's really easy to just distract yourself with the next activity from like any underlying anxiety, insecurity, uncertainty that might be out there. And I've found myself, right, if I don't smoke for a long time, let's say, I'm just able to bury any overarching problem with just, I'm gonna go for a run and I got work to do and I'm gonna watch a show and on and on and on, sleep, wake up, keep going. Where like sometimes marijuana will really help you slow down and just like block everything out and think, really look inward. And I think that's a good point that you make is you have to again be comfortable in that state and know that the uncomfortable feelings that could creep in is actually productive, right? You need to feel that sometimes in order to I don't know, grow as a person. You can't just distract yourself forever. And it's yeah, cannabis definitely helps with that. Notice that myself.
It's really interesting. We were having this conversation earlier on one of our Patreon calls, and I had mentioned that sobriety itself tends to be a bit of a drug. And somebody was asking what I mean by that. And sobriety is kind of a myth. And what I mean is that we have this idea that I'm sober now, and therefore I'm in control. But really, all we're going through is that we're familiar with the thoughts that we think. We think them all the time, and so we feel a lot more comfortable thinking them. When we're high, all of a sudden we're like, oh my god, there are a bunch of other shit and thoughts and stuff going through, and I'm not sure what to do about that. So we think sober equals control, but you're never really sober. Like that is a myth in itself. If you get a little hungry, you're going to get all fucked up, right? If you eat a little bit too much sugar, you're going to get a little fucked up. So it's
For
this
sure.
myth that we can be a certain state that is sober, just so we can feel like we have more control that we never did.
Absolutely. Man, I feel like I'm gonna like listen to this recording later tonight, like in bed. Listen to that clip over and over. Just be like, yeah, he's right.
Yeah. Yeah,
While I
dude.
take while I take our new gummy. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what, yeah, the whole podcast is all about is that willingness to just keep stepping through, like the willingness to just not have to know what's happening to keep letting it happen and to keep letting it go and just to keep allowing it to just be what it is without your opinion getting in the way. Like I'm realizing just how often it's just my opinion of something, like my idea that this is something that shouldn't be happening or this is something that's bad. It's like I've never looked at my opinion itself as being the root as opposed to like what it is, and then dealing with after my opinion of this needing to face that. It's like maybe it's just your opinion of it. It's like,
Totally.
oh,
And
yeah,
it helps to like have that framework going in though, right? Like if you can prepare for that, I think you're much more willing to accept it when you're feeling those things. Whereas like when you get blindsided by it, you're like, fuck, dude, I gotta like get out of this, or I gotta like go do something or escape this. Like you have to know it's coming, right? It's probably why people, do ayahuasca with like on like a retreat with a shaman and everything, so you can really fully be ready for it. But I think that even can be said for cannabis to a degree, right? You want to just let the thoughts flow, feel a lot better that way.
for sure. It's cannabis really does, I feel like, show you, like there's the what's Bob Marley, the herb shows you yourself. Yeah. Like, and how, and I've wondered this, if on cannabis, if you're acting a little more goofy, a little more relaxed, and you have this, conceptual idea of yourself that isn't that, there's almost going to be a resistance just because it's different. Like it doesn't match the thing that you think you are anymore. And so there's an aversion to that, as opposed to just realizing, that thing that you're trying to be isn't it. You can allow yourself to be this. And this is actually closer to you just fucking letting go and being yourself. And so
100%.
in a society that pushes for control and is always striving to be the next thing, it's like, of course there's an aversion to that. Of course there's an aversion to less control and more freedom in yourself, willingness to be yourself.
And I think that's like kind of one of those reasons why, like I mentioned, I've enjoyed it, or like I've used cannabis less as I've gotten older, is because like without realizing it, as you go out into the world, you put on like this front. It doesn't feel artificial or anything, but you act and behave and present in a certain way that you think is like just beneficial to you and compliant with society, right? And so like when you're put in a state that's like makes it difficult to maintain that, that's when you start getting a little bit anxious. Whereas like in college, not to like overgeneralize like cannabis in this way, but like I could act like a total dumbass and like that's actually acceptable and like maybe encouraged in some ways, right? Or like totally not give a shit about how you're acting or how you look because you're just, with your buds, everybody maybe on campus is kind of in a similar state. And so it was a lot easier to like let go at that time. And now it's like, it's just so like not really common. And so I think that's where like a lot of that anxiety creeps in. But sometimes, kind of like you said, if you can go into it and just be like, I'm going to get high right now and don't care, what's going to happen from here on out. It's almost like you're watching yourself from a third party and like laughing at it, like interacting with people.
It's interesting. I think that there's the big problem that we tend to have is that there's a gap that forms between where we are when we're high and where we are the rest of the time, and we don't necessarily recognize it. And so what I mean is, like, if you were to look at it as a graph, we tend to think of ourselves as getting high, then going back down to sobriety, or getting high and going back to sobriety. But really what it is just relaxing versus feeling a bit more in control. So we go through this loop and we see it like this, but over a longer timeline, it's actually going more towards relaxation and less into stress, or more into stress and less into relaxation. So it's not just this up and down thing, it's also going up or down in a larger arc all the time. And so if you are spending day to day to day to day relaxing from time to time, but generally still going over the thoughts that make you stressed, then you might feel a little relaxed from time to time, but still notice a general downward trajectory into stress most of the time, which is why it hits you so hard when you get high. Whereas if you're
Totally.
relaxed more often than not and you get high, you're like, yeah, I can do that. I'm doing this most of the time. And so all of a sudden it doesn't seem like such a big deal, right? Because you're not worried about it. There's none of that
Absolutely.
jarring, like, oh God, am I in conflict with anybody? Because you don't feel like you're in conflict with yourself.
Absolutely. I think also it's like if you're new to the whole experience at first, I think people don't really talk about microdosing cannabis very often, but I think like inching your way in that way can like allow you to like nobody wants to just like jump off the cliff, right? And into like a new experience. Well, maybe so, like I said, not everybody, but like part of the fear of what's to come is could make the experience worse once it hits. And if you can familiarize yourself with it a little bit in like a more mild way, maybe you're not ready for the full existential crisis yet, then you can just like be familiar with what that's like and like kind of ramp it up. It doesn't just go for marijuana necessarily, but yeah, I don't know. I found like a lot of people have like, because when we first started playing with THC products, we launched like really microdose products, and we actually had a when we moved in this new facility, we had like a kind of open house thing for friends and family to come by, whatever. A lot of people, a lot of our parents and parents aged, and we had all of these samples out there, CBD products, topicals, all in these big buckets. Everybody could just come grab whatever they wanted. And like at the end of the night, the THC bucket, the microdose bucket was completely gone. I'm like, oh damn, like people are using these a little more than they lead on. But like especially like a slightly older generation grew up with the most stigma behind it, and now that they're experimenting it with like low levels, I think they familiarize themselves, and now they're like our biggest customers for like the normal THC products. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's so important. And at the same time, I'm just from a discussion standpoint, less so THC specific, but curious, like with the microdosing, I guess it's the shift in a mentality, right? A willingness to be uncertain. So older generations would gravitate more towards a smaller shift because they've held so fucking tightly to that control. And that's kind of almost like a shift we're feeling coming out of less mechanisms of control, less need for big overarching things because they've gotten almost too big. And so if you have this desire for control, like if you have a really, really high dose, I'm not necessarily recommending this to anyone, but that's just going to rip the whole carpet out from under you, where it's like, oh, there's no certainty, like there's no control, and it's just right in your face, as opposed to like, easing in a little bit, which is its own thing too. And I'm not saying, I'm just, I guess, saying from just like a fucking let go standpoint is like, we kind of hold on a little bit to like, oh, I have some. And it's like, there's none. That's where freedom is. You
Right.
don't need that control, but
Right.
that's a lot at once. Yeah.
No, exactly. And it's funny because like you make a good point, right? Like you will, if you're trying to help somebody with cannabis a little bit, oh, I think you should try it, you should not send the house on the first play, right? Because I've seen that happen too. Like we give our sample gummies in 3 counts, and like when people have never taken them before, we even had, well, I obviously can't, we had like somebody of significance in here, and like they got impatient and took all 3, and he was like, dude, I could not go upstairs to go to bed, basically. Or like I've had, like I remember when I was flying to Europe one time, just like oh, I got like a long time to be, on this plane. I'm gonna just like again send the house on it, and I happened to be getting on like a foreign airline. They were speaking a different country, and I was just like in a completely different world where I was like, I do not want to do this again for a while. Point being, right? It's important to maintain at least a little bit of control, and especially if you're not in that frame of mind and that you're fully ready for it. Definitely don't want it to happen by accident. But yeah, like just like tiptoeing into it is just like a good way to, I don't know, you slowly experience it, and people tend to ramp up from there, right? It'd be like the same thing with drinking, right? If you drink for the first time and you just get obliterated and throw up and you're hungover, you'd be like, that is like probably the worst thing ever. Not that that's something you should be trying to get into, but same idea.
For sure. I think a big part of it is the path that we take to some degree. Sometimes we're so afraid that even the littlest bit of movement in that direction, we're just not having it. Like cannabis is just bad. nope, doesn't matter how much I have, I'm not getting high. You're a hippie, you're a doper, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And there's that. And so at that point, those people generally just wait until they get so fucking miserable and out of whack that they actually have a big dose out of necessity of something, and then they just crash and they're like, oh fuck, this is crazy, right? Whereas other people can edge their way that way and actually willingly step more and more into the unknown until they feel like, okay, well, I've practiced enough on the low board and the mid board. I'm going to go up to the high board now and see what the hell I can do, right? But sometimes, that high jump, it'll break you. It'll break you, and it takes you a little while to realize, like, yeah, that's okay though. Like, you're still going to be all right, but it rattles you. And while that's valuable in some cases, like for me, when I went through about a decade of really deep, dark depression, and it took a real swift kick in the cerebral nuts, as it were, for me to suddenly just go, whoa, what am I doing? Right. And that was it. A small dose wasn't doing it. And I was getting high, like a lot. It wasn't until I was so fucking high that I had no sense of self that I recognized it was that sense of self I was holding on to that made all of my hell possible.
So you actually had like a singular revelation kind of moment? Like there's an instance that you think back to?
Yes.
And so do you continually jump off the high dive then? Is that like the strategy? Like
I live in the air.
You try to get back to that point.
I am that point. So that's the thing, right? Somebody asked me recently, like, do you ever worry about getting lost again? I said, no, that's where I'm trying to go. And it's just because we don't recognize that. We start to feel lost and confused, and we don't recognize that's when we're paying attention. That's when we're actually learning things. That's when we're uncomfortable, right? That's where you're you. It's when you try to make sense of it that all of a sudden you're what you think you are. And that's when you're in a prison. So I stopped trying to carry around the idea of me. I figured, fuck it, just keep jumping.
Wow, very cool. Yeah, it's the right. It's the trying to control the part that creates a uncomfortable feeling. Well, but like you said, like even before that point of revelation, you were like getting high a lot. And do you still do that? Has like anything changed since that moment?
What I do with it.
Gotcha.
It's what I do with it. Before, I was trying to escape my pain. I was trying to deal with my pain, kind of a cessation of the suffering and the stress and all of that. And it was largely because I wasn't responsible for it. I wasn't responsible for it. So I was looking for something to save me from it. And that was the problem, was my lack of responsibility. But as soon as I became responsible for my own suffering, the narrative I was holding on to, well, then all of a sudden I was getting a lot higher on a lot less weed.
Interesting. Really? So just like where you were able to take your mind is almost like you were able to control the journey more, even without increasing your actual dose, so to speak.
Absolutely, because again, and I've said this in a previous episode, that being high is synonymous with being relaxed. The more relaxed you are, the higher you are, right? So if you're relaxed most of the time, you're pretty much high, right? That's why people who are really relaxed tend to be a little goofy, tend to make a few more jokes. They tend to, whistle while they're walking down the street and shit. It's just because they're relaxed. That's exactly what we do when we're high. Very
true. Wow, it's super interesting. That feels like Jedi training, kind of what you just described a little bit. I was like, damn, you gotta like become enlightened with the Force to fully understand it. Like if you're closed off to it, it's not gonna work.
The ultimate lightsaber is just a giant joint.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Maybe that's what it's all about.
Seriously, right? Just you being yourself.
That's why Yoda's green.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The herb. He's the herb. Oh, it's incredible how it's just right there all the time. Like just the narrative, just the idea, just the certainty and feeling like I know something, right? It's just like I know something. And even if it's this thing that's going to create this suffering, at least I know something. It's like, do you though? Do you know that?
And that like that philosophical discussion is not really one that is had from like a clinical standpoint or a right in terms of like medical recommendations.
Yes.
Like you right. So it's like all those things that we just discussed there are so valid, but like you can't, nobody's really going to tell you that. You have to have a discussion like this, an open discussion, to realize that kind of potential. And it's so obviously everybody's experience is so different too. And if there's variability in experience, you can't like drill down into a conclusive scientific answer sometimes. I mean, you can, but it's a little deeper than that. Like you said, it requires some coaching and everybody's different. So, I think it's going in the right direction, but it is, credit to what you guys are doing, even just, putting the guard down and having this conversation, I think, is going to help a lot of people, not just in terms of, cannabis or anything, but letting go of that fear. So really, really cool. I've been listening to you guys before this conversation, but even still, like I said, I'm gonna have to re-listen later while I'm watching Star Wars.
Right? Yeah, and we're all on the same side here. I mean, we're all in this together. The fact is that you're making it possible for people to change their lives in one way, and we're just having a conversation about the fact that they can, because that's something that we don't often discuss, is the fact that we have far more potential than we think we do. It's just that we spend all of our time thinking, and so we don't see that potential.
Yeah, right. Just gotta let go sometimes.
Exactly. And to know that even with like a, higher dose gummy being kind of forced into that, we in the society that we're existing in right now, it's like no one knows what that is. Like no one even knows what's coming up. Like all of the shit you're resisting, you're avoiding. People are just like, oh, I got too high and it freaked me out. And it's like, that's you. And so our society doesn't want to look at that, but it shifts with us too. Like
Yeah.
we are the changing
When
society, the changing conversation.
I'm curious, Andrew, when you do your gummy runs, do you find that like the running helps you like not get too stuck into in like a bad place? Like, I don't know. Do you feel more free by running while you're doing that, or is it like the opposite where you're like actually lost?
That's a interesting question, because for me it's like, is it a means of avoidance, is kind of how I think of it when I do that. And yeah, and it's the same I do it with, and like I'll admit, like it is to a point, but at the same time, like you're running, but you think you're running to somewhere or from something, and you're just you running the running happening. And so, but when I do get high, sometimes it's like food. Like I feel like food is people say it's the munchies, but it's like a means of avoidance almost, of certain just sitting with doing nothing. And so, yeah, I mean, the gummy runs are nice just because it makes running great, because I'm doing the running anyway. But it's also an interesting experience. It definitely maybe diminishes in intensity slightly from the running, but yeah, the higher doses definitely fucking rock me. So
yeah, I can't even believe it. Sometimes I'd be like, where am I even going right now? But so like you feel like you feel a little bit guilty that you're like escaping just sitting with it, you're saying?
no, not escaping sitting with it. It's like, and it's not guilty, it's just recognition of avoidance tactics in a sense.
Like by running?
Yeah, I don't know.
I find that interesting. Do you think moving or running, you're escaping the here and now?
Yeah, no. Huh. Not at all.
Then what makes you think you're escaping anything? If anything, you're just paying attention to what's in front of you. Paying attention to what's in
Yeah.
front of you is not escaping anything except the self-imposed hell. And that's not really escape. It's just the recognition, like it's there. I could focus on it, or I can look at what's in front of me and not trip and skin my knee. Right? But that's always the case. Even if you're sitting at home, the thoughts are optional. You can stare at those thoughts. You can stare at those doubts. You can stare at all of those things that say, you have shit to deal with. None of it's true. I mean, it's being processed in the background regardless. You don't have to focus on it. You can focus on what's happening right now. Your brain's still processing. It's not like all of a sudden when you stop judging your progress, you stop making progress. Right? We're always learning things. It's not like you have to sit there going, all right, now pay attention, pay attention. That's not how it works. You just pay attention and you learn. But we sit down and we actually start thinking like, there's nothing happening right now. I better work on things. And it's like, why? You got here through working on things. Just arrive. Be where you are, right? But we actually think like, but if this doesn't feel hard, I'm not growing. It's like you are growth. It's built in. It's what you do. You don't have to be judging your progress, because that just hinders your progress. That's all. It just gets in the fucking way. Doesn't matter if you're jogging or sitting still. It's still just you here now, and the temptation to judge that shit. And you can, but you're never ever going to know. You're never ever going to arrive at an idea of what the fuck is happening that's actually remotely close to the truth. It's just what you feel comfortable enough to settle on.
Yeah, fuck. It's just another egotistical means of avoidance to fucking judge anything that you're. Oh, it's so funny. As I was right after, I was like, that's such a interesting way of saying that. And it was like a almost gut instinct reaction, like maintain some degree of story about this. Like this means this or whatever. But no, because I'm not, there's nothing to avoid even. There's nothing to run from or to ever.
You can't escape yourself.
No.
You can't run from the experience of existing. You just can't. Right? One way or another, you're dealing. But if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, I should be dealing with this more, that's just you feeling like you're not enough right now. That's all it is. You're just reaching for the comfort of a story, of a narrative, of some idea that you can improve over time rather than just watch what you're already capable of unfold. It's just this idea of control. Like, I can be more if I just think about this. It's like, that's getting in the way, because every time you think about what you should be, you're looking backwards. You're always looking at things you've already known. You're never looking at what you can be. You're looking at the past, which is what you've been. So if you're thinking about it, you're stagnating your change, because you're always going in fucking circles back to where you've been. So you have to let go to let change happen. And that's when you see it happen. That's when an insight slaps you in the face. It's because you're not trying to find it. You're not trying to be anything. And then all of a sudden you can see what you are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just the familiar over and over and over and over. Like we've held on. We've thought, we've clung to that shit. Like we've done it for a long ass time. I've done it for a long ass time. There's not a benefit to it. If anything, you get to the point and you just let go anyway when you do it, right? Like to do it, you got to let go. So why not just do that as you go? Like you're
In a
coming up to
bit,
these points.
let me think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems like it's even more difficult these days, or less common, because like the cell phone, it is so easy to just like flip that thing open and like immediately like just not stop looking inward, stop pondering. I always say, like, when people talk about like kids these days are growing up with this, that, and the other, my like line with that is always like, there's going to be no time to ponder anything. The world around you, your inner thoughts, yourself, and this goes for adults too. Like now we as adults have these phones and technologies and these constant pinging, where I feel like sometimes all this time goes by and you wake up and you're like, I haven't like thought about anything in a pondering, innocent way for like a year sometimes, right? And then all of a sudden you're there, you're like what time has just passed? And I think it's so easy and so common. And I think might be some, one of the contributors to increased levels of anxiety among people is because you're not able to just like sit with yourself a little bit. It's so easy. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I know that I do it and I still have trouble doing it, right? Putting my phone down, putting my laptop down. And when I deliberately do that, running, funny enough, is one thing that helps that a lot for me, or even like long drives, right? Because I can't look at anything. Sometimes on a road trip, I'm like, God damn it, I gotta like, be in this car for hours. And then you realize that you're in this like meditative state for the first time in a long time, where you have nothing interrupting that stream of thought. And so anyways, not to be worrisome, but I do feel like that becomes more difficult to arrive at with cell phones.
I think stressing about the cell phone makes it worse. What I like about what you were just saying is that, and you'll notice this, is after that first initial, like, it's a long ride, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. And in that state, you become more and more hesitant to even reach for your phone. Right. And it's just because you're actually appreciating the alternative, which you weren't aware of because you just weren't giving yourself the opportunity to be aware of that. So I love that. But it's recognizing, as you were saying earlier, about business, about thought, about, obligation. There's shit we got to do. Like, we have to participate in the world. Right. But I think that just like with all thoughts and with all concepts and everything else, a tool can be a tool until it becomes a prison. Right. Like with my phone, for example, it pretty much never leaves do not disturb. And it's just because if somebody's going to call me, I can call them back. Right. I don't need to be like, oh God, where's my phone? It's ringing. Oh no. Like just shit, like, because that's exhausting to me. It doesn't make any sense to me as a person. There was other jobs where that wasn't the case. So I make choices according to my specific situation, where I can minimize how much time I'm putting into being on the ball, where I can take those moments just to be relaxed for even 5 minutes. Because what I love about this is that everybody was on this path to try and understand, like, how can I find peace? It's like, just relax. Like just right now, give your brain a reminder. It doesn't always have to be on the run. And your brain will go, that felt really nice. And it will find another way to do it on its own. An insight will pop up on its own. It's just about allowing yourself to actually experience the thing that you want to learn how to do. Because once you've experienced it, then your brain's just like, yeah, let's do that a bit more. Right. But we keep trying to fight our way to relaxation instead of just how much can I relax right now? It's not a black and white thing. It's just even taking off a shade, just a shade. Like to say like, oh, it's a shitty day and then go, yeah, but I don't really know. Anything could happen. Boom, that stress is just decreased by like 50% just through that, just being willing to question your own assumption. If you do that all the time, eventually you're just in a state of flow.
For sure. And that last part that you said, right? A better day will come. That from a business perspective, we've learned that so much over the years. We're like, you don't get too down on things. Like, it's like, yeah, damn, today sucks. But like, there's going to be like a really high day soon too. But like, we're just like in one of those lulls. And like, once you've seen them enough, you know, like every time you're down there, you're like, we are fucked. Everything's fucked. Like, and this goes personally too. My business is just like a more tangible example that I can like share with my other guys here, where we all feel that the same way. And then it could be like 6 hours later, we're like, dude, we are on top of the world right now. And over time, you can just realize that that ebb and flow is natural. Like, it's okay to feel that low, but it will pass. It'll always pass. One of the best pieces of advice I ever learned actually was from one of my philosophy teachers. Was he said like most people will go through like a major depressive episode in their life, and like in basically every single case there is an end to it, but like you don't want to believe it right at the time. And so if you could have that, if you have that knowing that it will pass, I think you can just like let things flow a lot easier.
That's exactly it, right? Like that's the hardest part about being in that state of hell is the conviction that it will last forever. As soon
Right.
as you think to yourself, this will pass, it starts to.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you let go of the idea that it might last forever, because it's forever in the sense that your entire experience is here and now, but it's just the certainty that it's going to remain that way, thinking that there is a timeline even there. And as soon as you're like, oh yeah, this won't last forever, it's almost like that's what drops it at least a tiny bit, at least a little bit of it comes off like a chink in the armor there. But that's just it. And so yeah, it's fun to be able to incorporate these talks with you, man. Dennis, it's been a blast chatting. I would love to know, because you know you are a user and you got a lot of dope products, which I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but I'm on 2 of their gummies. I forget the exact name, but they're delicious and they've been a whirlwind, but it's been a lot of fun and fun to experience with everyone. I used the balm, the fire and ice balm, absolutely loved it. It's got a bunch of CBD in it. Felt really good, just like on some things that were sore for me. And the other things that I had, they're mostly like CBD, CBG, some of those gummies, and then the dropper, really good. So, but I'd love to know what your favorite product that you have is and why I like it so much.
Okay. We have a product called, or we have like a line called our Gold Reserve line. We have a gummy and an oil, and we call it that because it's really high potency, but it's CBD, so it's high CBD potency, but it's full spectrum also, which full spectrum means there is trace amounts of THC in there. Not really quantifiable levels, probably less than 1 milligram per gummy. Definitely less. I know there's one less than 1 milligram, but that I love that product personally because it allows me to totally relax, feel a little bit of like a euphoric high, but not feel like I'm really blasted off. And so like just, you know, if I'm chilling out at the end of the night, that's probably one of my favorite products. Or after a long, you know, if you have a long night, if you're ever hungover, also a product that highly recommend. But yeah, just the high potency CBD products are my favorite for sure.
Well, that's awesome, Dennis. We're gonna wrap up here very shortly, but I know we have a number of retreats that are coming up in the States over the next year. I believe our next one is in February in Virginia Beach, so it's possible we might reach out and get some of your products for our guests so they can give them a try, and then we can get you a few reviews during a retreat where we're practicing the mentality that we're talking about here, because that's the
Hell yeah.
reason that we do these is to just have a place to have that space to do what it is you're doing without thinking that you need to keep up with anybody else's bullshit or any drama or anything in the world. And I love those retreats because everybody's phone eventually just ends up being left.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Oh yeah. I mean, first of all, so cool. And happy to contribute any way that I can. And we literally make products based on what people say. So like, we get a bunch of feedback. Hey, need more of this, less of this. Good chance you'll see it.
That is awesome. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a blast chatting and hanging with you, man. I'm excited to chat again soon and get you to a retreat at some point.
Oh, dude, I would love to come. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Hell yeah. We'll have you back on the show at some point, no doubt. Thank you everyone for joining us for this episode of Being High. We've had a blast, and we hope that you did too, and that hopefully you were high while listening. And if you weren't, well, then definitely keep that in mind for next time. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.